وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. The Prophet ﷺ was sent to perfect noble character, to correct human behavior, to leave behind a nation of people that conducted themselves and dealt with other people in the finest way possible. This was an ummah that prided itself in excellence. It was an ummah that when they heard something, they would never try to get by with the bare minimum. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes them in the Quran, الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ هَدَى اللَّهُ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. These are those people that when they hear an instruction, they try to fulfill it to the best degree possible, to the highest degree. So if they heard an instruction of salat, they would work so hard on fulfilling it that they would perfect it. They would perfect that aspect of salat. When they were encouraged to do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they became completely engrossed in the dhikr of Allah. When any command came, when the commandment of the prohibition of liquor came, in clear and absolute terms, then they didn't just stop drinking that night. They took the bottles and the containers, the vessels that they had their wines stored in, and they literally shattered them, and this wine was flowing in the streets and in the gutters of Medina. Because they wanted to fulfill that command in such a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can see how committed they are to whatever it is that Allah wants them to do. When Hakim ibn Hizam radiallahu anhu came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked him for some assistance, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam helped him. Then he came back and asked him for more. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam helped him. Then he came back and asked him for more. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam assisted him and told him that, look, it's better if you don't ask. It's better if you try to work and fulfill your needs. And whoever tries this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easy for him. So this had such an impact on Hakim radiallahu anhu that he never asked anyone for anything ever again. That one instruction was enough, so much so that if he was traveling on his horse and the whip fell from his hand, he would not ask someone who was walking to pick it up for him and pass it to him. He would get off his animal, go down, pick it up himself, then get back on, because the Prophet ﷺ had told him that it's better not to ask people for favors. When Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was admonished by the Prophet ﷺ for using harsh words, then Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu after that day never used a harsh word, the Sahaba say, even for an animal, even for a rock. His language completely changed because of this instruction. So the Prophet ﷺ left behind an ummah that was filled with so much zeal and enthusiasm to rush towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what was propelling them and pushing them. And every one of them was trying to outdo the other. Now when it comes to good conduct and behavior, Sahaba were no different. Everyone is trying to outdo the other in generosity, in patience. They're giving examples of each other's patience and trying to outdo the other person. And the best example, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself had demonstrated all of the beautiful characteristics. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. You have the highest degree of character, of conduct. Your character is immense. You are a giant of beautiful character and conduct. And he displayed this not on the odd occasion that some narration happened to capture. This was his life. This man, Zayd ibn Sa'na, who was a Jewish rabbi, had studied his scriptures in which they were told about this final prophet who is going to come. And he says that when I studied my scriptures, I found that all the characteristics of that prophet that we had been told could be seen in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he said there were a couple that I hadn't seen with my own eyes. One is that he never responds to ignorance with ignorance. Rather, he will always respond to ignorant behavior with tolerance. And the second thing is that the more ignorantly people behave, the more tolerant he becomes. So he said, I wanted to test this. So one day he was leaving the masjid with Ali radiallahu anhu, and a man, a Bedouin, came and asked the Prophet ﷺ for some help for his tribe. He said, these people have accepted Islam, and their expectation was that after accepting Islam, things are going to become easy for them. But they are going through severe drought, severe economic and financial affliction. If this is not alleviated, I'm scared that they may leave Islam. The Prophet ﷺ turned towards Ali radiallahu anhu to see if there was anything in Baytul Mal, in the treasury, that they could help them out with. Ali radiallahu anhu said, no, we've just spent everything on other people. So this Jewish rabbi capitalizes, he exploits this situation, and he walks up and he says, looks like you need some help. Looks like you need some financial aid. I'm happy to provide it for you. If I'm a person who deals with dates, and I know you have orchards in which dates are growing. So how about I buy some dates for you and I'll give you the money up front. You can use this money to take care of whatever needs to be looked after. So the Prophet ﷺ made the deal with him. The man gave him the money, and the time was set after 1 month to deliver the dates to this man, Zayd. The Prophet ﷺ takes this money, this gold, and gives it to that Bedouin and says, go and spend on your people and look after them. Now, 2 or 3 days before the due date, before the payment that Nabi ﷺ was supposed to make, Zayd comes to the Prophet ﷺ deliberately. The Prophet ﷺ had just attended a janazah of one of the Ansar, and he is just about to sit down somewhere against a wall when Zayd ibn Sa'na comes up and grabs him by the front of the shirt. He grabs him by the front of the shirt and pulls him right back up. And he says that, look at you, delaying your payments. I look after you, and this is what you do, and what kind of people are you? And he starts using all this rude language, this abusive language. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was there, Umar radiallahu anhu was there. Right away Umar radiallahu anhu turns to him and he says that, O enemy of Allah, you dare speak to the Prophet ﷺ in this way? Let me sort you out. If the Prophet ﷺ wasn't standing here, I would have probably chopped your head off. He's very mad. Then he looks back to the Prophet ﷺ, who has been insulted and pulled and yanked by this man. And he's there with a big smile on his face, calm as ever. Umar radiallahu anhu is puzzled. What's going on here? So the Prophet ﷺ says, Oh Umar, we were both in need of something else right now, not these threats. You should have told him, you should have told me that I should pay my debts on time. And you should have told him that you should ask in a nicer way. That would have been a wiser approach. Even though the debt was not due yet, the Prophet ﷺ knows that. He could have said, send this man away. But he absorbs it. He absorbs it. He humbles himself, he lowers himself. Then he tells Umar radiallahu anhu, of all people, that you will go now with this man that you have just threatened, you will take him to the treasury and pay him this much money, and pay him an extra 20 saws, and one saw is about 3.5 kilos. So somewhere around 70 kilos more of dates because you threatened him, as a compensation for threatening him. Now Umar radiallahu anhu is probably the last person who wants to walk with this man, but he is the one who has to go and make the delivery to this man. So he takes him, he gives him all the dates that he is owed, and then starts measuring out more. So Zayd says, what's this? He says, no, I have to pay you extra. I have to pay you 70 kilos more. He says, why? He says, because I threatened you, I made you feel scared, and now I have to pay you for that. So Zayd ibn Sa'na says, Umar, you don't get it, do you? You don't know who I am. He says, no, I don't know. He says, I'm Zayd ibn Sa'na. Umar radiallahu anhu is shocked. He says, what? The Jewish rabbi? That's you? He said, yes. He says, how could an educated man like you act like that and do all of this? He said, I had to because I had read in my scriptures all the descriptions of the final prophet. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ fit all of those, but there were two things that I could only find out by testing, and that was these two things. He never responds to ignorance with ignorance. He responds to ignorance with tolerance. And the more ignorantly somebody behaves, the more tolerant he becomes. And you saw that, how he demonstrated that when I caught him off guard. How he responded to me. And so he took the shahada in front of Umar radiallahu anhu, and he pledged then and there that half of my wealth, and I'm one of the wealthiest people in Medina, half of my wealth is going to the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm going to donate it all. And then he came back and took the shahada in front of the Prophet ﷺ. What caused this to happen? There was no preaching involved. There were no lectures. It was having an impact on someone because of the way you dealt with them. When the Prophet ﷺ entered Mecca as the conqueror of Mecca, those people who had carried out battles against him all their lives, people like Abu Sufyan, who led the campaign of Badr against the Prophet ﷺ, and then the next campaign, and then the next one, and the next one. These were sworn enemies. And these people had been at war with the Muslims. When the Prophet ﷺ conquered Mecca, people thought that these men are the first ones that are going to be punished. It's going to be a time for punishment. The Prophet ﷺ did the exact opposite. He said, I'm not here to punish anyone. لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. He said, I will say to you the same thing that Yusuf alayhi salam said to his brothers after they threw him in the well, and they took him through this whole ordeal which basically ruined his life, but then resulted in him becoming the ruler of Egypt. When they came to him and apologized, he said, لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. Today there's no criticism for you. I'm not going to rebuke you. There's no punishment for you. May Allah forgive you. He says, I'm going to say the same thing to you. Even though you were my enemies all these years. 20 years of enmity is not a small time. How many lives were lost? How much blood was spilled? How many campaigns were waged against Islam and the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam? But he walks in, no aggression, no zeal to see bloodshed, no desire for vengeance, not at all. In fact, when one of his companions said, Al-yawma yawmul malhama, today there's going to be blood. Today we're going to pay back these people for all the damage they've done to us. One of the Sahaba said that. Somebody conveyed to the Prophet ﷺ that, look, that's what your companion is saying. And that Sahabi who said that was actually carrying one of the flags of the Muslim army. The Prophet ﷺ said, no, take the flag away from him. He doesn't deserve to hold it. How dare he say something like that? Then he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, no, today is not the day of malhama. Today is not the day where we're going to shed blood. Al-yawma yawmul marhama. Today is the day where we're going to show how merciful we are. And he walked in with that mercy. And that same Abu Sufyan that had led campaign after campaign against him and the Muslims, the Prophet ﷺ said, Man dakhala dara Aba Sufyan fahuwa amin. If you go into the house of Abu Sufyan, no one's going to touch you. So Abu Sufyan said, That's beautiful. But how many people can fit in my house? There's only so many people that can fit in my house. The Nabi ﷺ said, anyone who goes into their own house and closes the door, no one's going to touch them. Then someone said, no, there are many people who will not be able to reach their homes. He says, it's okay. Whoever goes into the masjid, they're also safe. He's announcing this openly. He taught us how to deal with anger. You think there wasn't anger? You think there wasn't rage? You think there wasn't pain? How much damage had been done to Islam and Muslims? But the Prophet of Allah ﷺ showed that above everything, just like Allah's mercy always supersedes His anger, the mercy of Nabi ﷺ also supersedes his anger, and the mercy of a Muslim should also supersede their anger. But here we are in our little tiffs, and our little tussles, our little fights, our little spats that we have, we're not willing to let things go, and some people become sworn enemies of each other even though they're Muslim brothers, they're sisters, but they hold grudges against each other, vying to take each other down, creating an environment, creating groups. Us against them, our people against their people, my friends against their friends. This is not what we have been taught in our deen. We've been taught a completely different set of behaviors. Allah says that the quality of the believers is وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ. Anger will come. Sometimes it will be overpowering, but that's the time to forgive, and that's the time to let things go. In fact, the only way to cure anger is to let things go. So we have a very rich tradition filled with beautiful akhlaq. If we were to adopt them, we would be seen as the most beautiful people in the world. But we have to adopt those teachings. We have to become those teachings. We have to demonstrate those teachings to our fellow students, to our parents, to our families, and to the communities at large. That is what our being here is all about. It's about becoming the better person. No matter how good we are, and there's no doubt that we are good, it's about becoming even better. It's about closing the doors for shaitan to steal away our deeds. It's about closing the door for shaitan to create enmities and hatred amongst us. It's about closing the doors for shaitan to bring out the worst person inside us. This is a journey that we all have to walk on. This is the path that we all have to commit to, and if we commit to it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us every step of the way. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist us and guide us and give us steadfastness. Wa sallallahu wa sallama wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allah.